Amazing. And what about things like sort of, so those are kind of embedded. What about sort of furniture? Any of those kind of things? Can that be included?
So you can claim, I mean, so in offices, you can claim on office equipment. We typically don't claim that because they're the low ticket items that the accountants can claim. We're going for the specialist items here. But in your service accommodation, it's, yeah, I mean, all of the furniture is subject specific because it has to come furnished. You're not going to do an unfurnished service accommodation unit. So all of that stuff is subject specific. Everything from picture frames on the wall, because it all provides ambience for the kind of setup of that hospitality business. So if you can claim it in a hotel, you can certainly claim it in a service accommodation unit. So all of those bits that are specific to that trade, we can claim capital allowances on. So you might buy a brand new apartment, doesn't need anything doing to it. The only thing you're going to do is fit it out and kit it out with furniture. We can claim that'll be your refurb cost. That'll be your additional expenditure, fitting that property out with furniture, kitchenware, and all the rest of it to get it up and running. And we can claim on all that for service accommodation, certainly.
Amazing. Okay, so inherently you have to have a qualifying trade, and for us that's service accommodation, and then you have to have qualifying bits and
activity,
pieces,
which is the business of service accommodation itself, which is exactly that, the short lets.
Fantastic. And then you spoke about this, and does it matter if it's a flat, a house, any of those kind of things? Is it just literally something that you use, that you've purchased, a property that you've used and purchased, and you run it, you change it to service accommodation?
Exactly that. So it could be any type of residential unit that you've converted across. It could be an office to resi conversion. It could be anything along the lines. It could be a block of apartments that you're running all now as service accommodation. Whatever it is, again, it's just the trade and the activity. As long as you're providing both of those, it's service accommodation. So it makes no difference as to whether it's an actual house, a terraced house, a detached house, a one-bed apartment, a two-bed apartment, three-bed, wherever it may be. It's all the same. They're all residential units. They just have their own kind of merits.
And just for everyone's benefit as well, does it matter what the planning use class is? So if it's C1, C3, so C1 would be, hotels, guest house. C3 is basically residential. Does it matter for claiming capital allowances in either of those areas?
We would typically prefer it to be C1 just for the case of if HMRC were ever to inquire into the figures for whatever reason, which is fairly, it doesn't happen very often, but say they were to, it just strengthens your case because it is running as a hospitality business. But it's not a requirement. I mean, I'll be honest, probably about 99% of all the cases I do don't have C1 use. They just use it, leave it as it is, because it's just, unless there's a need to do it, no one really does it, right? So if I said, right, to claim the capital allowances, you need to convert to C1, then they'll do it, but I don't need it to do that. Again, as long as you can confirm that you are doing that qualifying trade and the activity, that's good enough. And I can just see from the bookings and everything else and the money coming in and the fact that you've got short-term nets on there and that's the trade that you're running, that's sufficient for HMRC purposes, certainly just to claim capital allowances. So we don't really need the change of use, class use. Like I said, it's always a good thing to have just for long-term audit purposes, but it's not a necessity. It's not a requirement. It certainly isn't.
Fantastic. And so what about the qualifying criteria then? So I know we've spoken about the activity and things like that. Is there a sort of a time scale that we have to look at?
So you want to make sure that, so I think the criteria is, so it has to be available for like 210 days of the year. It has to be let out for at least 105 days of the year and no lets over the 30 days. So it has to be kept that way. That is a qualifying criteria. We have had scenarios, I mean, COVID certainly, whereby people are doing a mix of kind of long-term nets and short-term nets just to get their money coming in because people were isolating and all the rest of it, in which case we have to deduct the income that was incurred from non-qualifying bookings and then obviously just do an averaging election against those and the ones that did qualify. So we do get cases like that, but that's typically the criteria that we need in order to satisfy it being service accommodation or a holiday let.
So it was 210 days that is out, say would it like booking.com, Airbnb, something like that. And then you have to show, and obviously if it's something through a website like booking.com, you can give proof that we have had this many short-term bookings that fulfill the criteria of under 30 days to enable us to have the 105 days, which means we can now claim it.
Which is what HMRC asked for. But I'll be honest with you, in all the years that we've been trading, they've never asked for the bookings. I'll be honest, the only stuff they ever look into is the ratings that I use for claiming the capital allowances, because the only thing they're concerned about is the money they're paying out. They don't care about whether you're hitting any other criteria. It's about the fact that, right, what we have into, what can we restrict these guys with? And it's just about the rate. So they'll come back and they'll ask questions about, oh, your rating for lighting was too aggressive, or your rating for the land is this and the other. And we always back it up. I'll only be as aggressive as I can be, as much as I can back it up. So it'll be a bit back and forth saying that, no, this is the rate that we use based on this, and here's the evidence of the lighting, and there's the evidence, blah, blah, blah. And we'll argue back and forth, and there'll be a bit of give and take. But typically, they always want to just try and downgrade the claims as much as possible. And we don't, I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't reduce the claim any which way, shape or form, because the results that we found and the numbers that we've quantified are based on evidence. Yeah. So why should we be reducing the allowances? It's for the duty of care is on them to prove that something I've done is wrong, and for them to downgrade the claim. And I think in the last 10 years of trading that we've been doing it for ourselves, we've only ever had 2 claims that have been downgraded, and they were multi-million-pound claims. And those are the ones that they're really looking at, because that's where they're paying out stacks and they want to reduce us. And even those ones, I think the maximum kind of downgrade we've had was 27,000 on an 18 million pound claim. And I was arguing that as well. And the client was like, just let it go. And I was like, but it's not though, because
it's
we're
the
right
principle.
Exactly. I mean, the only stuff HMRC can get me on is land values, because I'm not a DV and their district values are a lot more, refined and up to date than we are. So typically, if they're going to argue something about land, I might let them have that, but that's as much as I would let them have.